Rump Chapter 10 Unfair Bargains. The bell chimed, and the gnomes ran through the village, shouting, "Elizabeth, grandmother of Rump, has gone the way of all the earth." The gnomes announced death as they did anything else, with squeaking excitement, and that morning I despised the pudgy, waddling creatures more than ever. I went outside and threw snowballs at every gnome that passed. I missed them all. If there was ever a time to cry, this was it, but I couldn't. Everything inside me felt shriveled up and hollow, like a dead tree. I didn't cry when I saw Gran would not wake. I did not cry when they came and covered her with her quilt and took her away. I didn't cry when she was lowered into the hard frozen earth. I didn't cry when Red's mother touched my shoulder and placed my arms a loaf of still warm bread. When I came home, the cottage looked like a chicken coop attacked by a fox. Feathers and bones everywhere. Oats and flour sprinkled across the floor. Snow and dirt, pots and dishes, and rags. Buckets of melted snow leaked on the ground, creating little muddy rivers. It looked like I felt torn to shreds. Gran's bed was empty, the indents of her small body still pressed in the mattress. That's when I cried. I cried real snot-running, chest-heaving cries until it was all drained out and I was empty. Empty, empty, empty. Gran was gone. She would never greet me with a rhyme or comfort me when I felt small. She would never sit by the fire and tell me stories. I sat in the middle of the mess. I was still holding the loaf of bread Red's mother had given me. Mindlessly, I tore chunks off and ate, swallowing huge pieces before I chewed. I ate and ate. I ate the entire loaf and was still empty, empty, empty. The spinning wheel sat motionless by the stuffed-out fire. The wheel felt like a giant eye looming over me. I went into my bed and ripped open my mattress, letting the gold spill out onto the floor. It glimmered with cruel coldness. I hated that gold. I wanted nothing to do with it. I gathered every last skin inside my blanket and hauled it to the mill. This time the miller was waiting for me. "Such a sad time for you," he said with false sympathy, "but it seems that good fortune has befallen you in other ways." His eyes narrowed on my heavy bundle. It flung down at his feet and let the gold spill all over his doorstep. The miller jumped back and smiled. My, you've been busy." "What will you give me?" I asked. "Here." He handed me a small sack of potatoes, maybe 5 pounds. "Food is always more expensive in the winter, but keep up the hard work. I will always give you a fair bargain." I stared at the miller, seething. I wanted to say he was a lying, cheating, despicable, heartless villain. I wanted to throw the potatoes in his fat face and take my gold back, but my jaw clamped shut and my arms were fasted tight around the bag. The miller bent down and scooped up the gold. Then he shut the door in my speechless face. This wasn't magic. It was a curse, and I could feel it wrapping around me fast now, tightening its coils. I thought I wouldn't spin again. But eventually my food ran out. I had killed the last hen, and milk was not giving enough milk to quench thirst, let alone live on. It was pointless to look for gold in the mines. Even if I found some, I knew the miller would still give me nothing. He wanted my gold. So, as time wore on, I was forced to spin more. I gathered bits of straw from the floor and the hen's nest outside, but all that got me was some shriveled up turnips and onions. When the last turnip was gone, I tore Graham's mattress open and started spinning the straw inside. I spun Gran's entire straw mattress into gold. At first I cried as I did it. I was betraying Gran and spinning her memory away all at once. But then I stopped crying. I stopped worrying that anything bad would happen, and I stopped hoping that anything good would happen. I think I stopped feeling anything at all. I just spun. For 4 months, I spun and traded the gold to the miller. The trade was never fair, but I never argued. Once, I traded 10 skins of gold for a small sack of flour and some rotten carrots. Soon, I found I didn't care how fair the bargains were. Trading the gold soon became a habit more than a need. I no longer went to the mines. I never even went outside unless I was going to the mill. But no one seemed to notice or care, except for Red. She visited me sometimes. though we said very little. Once in a while, she brought a loaf of bread from her mother. That was the only time I felt anything. It's hard not to feel guilty when you're starving, when starving people bring you food. I thought I would just live that way for the rest of my life, spinning gold and never getting rich, eating food and never getting full, or tall, or smart, or kind, or anything at all. Maybe it would have stayed that way forever, if a certain visitor had not come to the mountains in search of a certain kind of gold.